With a lot of the sporting events and races starting back up, whether it be marathon running or trail running or mountain biking or whatever the case may be, you might be thinking of doing your first marathon or half marathon or doing a stage mountain bike race. And you're starting to train for it, and the races may be coming up, and you're thinking, okay, but what should I be doing to really be well prepared and, to get to the race done well. So today I thought I'd talk about what you can do and what we should be doing in terms of nutrition for the preparation of a race, and really just focusing on the week before that race, and also just some general tips and tricks you should be thinking of. So first of all, the thing that you should definitely be considering when you are training for a marathon or a long distance, whether it be cycling or running race, is to really be focusing on your nutrition to make sure that you are fueling your body effectively and efficiently. So in your training sessions, definitely making sure that you are getting enough fuel, whether it be with a pre-workout snack or meal, something that has carbohydrates in it, something like a fruit, or it could be a muffin or bread or a bar or something like that. That's a fast releasing carbohydrate, and some protein, whether it be in the form of some peanut butter on a piece of toast, or some nuts with your banana, or maybe a form of dairy like milk or cheese, or even an egg, is a good option for a pre-workout, something that's really small, that's not going to make you feel too full and maybe cause some nausea while you are training. So make sure that you are starting your training sessions well nourished with a carbohydrate and a protein source if possible. You don't need to worry too much about the fat. Then of course, in your training sessions, if it's going to be a long session, in other words, if it's going to be longer than an hour or an hour and a half, then it is definitely a good idea to maybe take something with you, whether it be something like a fruit, like a banana, or a form of a fruit that's easy to eat and maybe easy to carry with you, or it could then be your sports gels or gummies or bars that have been specifically made for the purpose of training with them. They are very small and compact and have the right amount of carbohydrates. So we're looking at maybe trying to consume about 30 to 60 grams of carbohydrates every hour of training session. So especially if you are going to train for more than an hour or an hour and a half. So if it's going to be a long bike ride over the weekend or a long run, then definitely make sure that you're taking some fuel with you. This is also a great option for you to train with these foods when you are going to do the event, maybe in a month or so, so that you can get used to it, so that your stomach and your gut can get used to eating while you're running or eating while you're cycling. And you can also do some trial and error and see what works for you. What do you like taste wise? What's too sweet? Maybe what's easy to open? All of those little practical things is good to do while you're training as well, so that you can really get to use the things that it's going to work for you. It's not going to cause any hassles when you're on the race. You don't want to be worried about your nutrition when you're racing. Then, of course, with your training sessions, we need to be recovering optimally. We've spoken a lot about recovery, and it's often the main focus will be on protein. So an easy option for most people is a protein shake, a recovery shake. It's very important to remember that we don't just want protein, we want some carbohydrates also for the recovery, because remember, you've used up your carbohydrate stores in that training session. So recovery shakes are often carbohydrate and protein based, which is perfect. But let's say you don't like the taste of protein shakes, so you don't want to take it, you don't need to. You can definitely get by with food, and that's again something that has a form of carbohydrate, whether it be fruit, or it could be a form of a starch, whether it's maybe some cooked rice with some protein, or it could be a slice of low GI bread with a form of protein on it, whether it be some tuna mayonnaise, or it could be a piece of cheese, or it could be a plant-based protein if you are vegan or vegetarian. So some beans mixed into rice, for example. So that's when it comes to your training. So definitely use your training to prepare, physically for the race, but also nutritionally for the race, so that you can get used to eating those foods, used to eating before running or cycling, and then also getting into that habit of recovering optimally after your session, so that you can be ready for the next session. So when it comes to your race day, let's say you're going to do a marathon or a half marathon, or you're going to do a cycling 100-kilometer cycle or whatever it may be, it's really important to prepare yourself optimally for it because you want to have a good race, right? So what we always say that's been shown to work effectively over so many years is carbohydrate loading. So carbohydrate loading means that we're just going to load the body with additional carbohydrates a few days before the race so that we can make sure that all the stores in the body is nice and full. Stores meaning your glycogen stores that we get in your liver and in your muscles, for example. So we want to make sure that all your petrol tanks are basically full to the brim so that when you do your race, you are, you're fully fueled, and then of course on your race you're going to do your gels or your bars or your fruit to make sure that you're maintaining your fuel levels. So think about something simple like a car. If you don't fill up your car with enough petrol or diesel to travel from point A to point B, it's going to stop somewhere in the middle, and it's not nice, it's not convenient, and you're not going to get to your end destination. As the same with your body. If you're not feeling it effectively in your race, you might hit a wall, or you might not complete it, or you might complete it but not in the time that you actually wanted to, or it might not it's just not as fun as it could be because you're tired and you're really having to push through that. So carbohydrate loading, basically what we recommend is 3 days before your race. So let's say your race is on Saturday, you can maybe start on Wednesday, Thursday around. That's where we want to make sure that there's additional carbohydrates in your diet. So we want to stay more or less in the same range for calories for your intake, but you just want to up your carbohydrate intake. So often what I recommend is just decrease your fat a bit, but up your carbohydrates. And these carbohydrates, we typically, it's often easier to drink them in the form of a carbohydrate drink. That's often, made by brands like Biogen or USN or 32GI and that type of thing. It's easy to consume that because it's quite a high amount of carbohydrates in a small volume, so you don't get too full. But you can also focus on carbohydrate-rich foods, like for example your fruits, again your grains like rice or pasta, your legumes, beans, lentils, chickpeas, and your starchy vegetables like sweet potato, and that type of thing. So definitely making sure that you are increasing your carbohydrate intake and maybe decreasing your fat intake. Fats meaning your rather opting for leaner proteins to reduce the fat, maybe also reducing your fat portions. So really being very mindful of the amount of fat that you add to your foods, and then also your nuts and seeds and fat portions, maybe just decreasing them to compensate for the amount of calories that you are increasing with the carbohydrates. So that's 3 days before. And then the day before the race, a lot of people think they should eat a massive meal the night before, like a big bowl of pasta, and that is true to an extent, but I'd rather have it at lunch. Have your biggest meal at lunch so that you have enough time to really just metabolize it and get all those good nutrition into your stores before your race the next morning, and that you also don't wake up bloated the next morning. On that note, just know that if you are going to increase your carbohydrates the next 3 days, you might see an increase in your weight, maybe by about 1 kilogram, and that's just water. It's not fat. Don't stress about it. It's a good thing, something we need because of the fact that we are now hydrating and fueling the stores efficiently. So that's great. Then the morning of the race, if you can, 4 hours before your race. I know it's very early for a lot of people. If your race starts at 6, then 4 hours before that's quite early. So just be practical about it. Don't overthink it. So maybe 2 to 4 hours before your race, have your proper breakfast, again containing carbohydrates, whether it's oats or whether it's Future Life or Pro Nutro or something like that. If you enjoy eggs before your race, that's great, but make sure that there is a form of carbohydrates, whether it's eggs and toast or oats and some nut butter or something like that. And then an hour to 30 minutes before your race, make sure you get a nice good fast releasing carbohydrate portion in, so a banana or a gel or a bar, or drink of Energade or something like that. And then making sure every hour of your race you are getting in that 30 to 60 grams of carbohydrates, whether it's in the form of a sip of Coke or whether it's in the form of a gel, a bar, or something that you take with you on the race. And then after the race, well done for completing it. And then make sure that you are recovering optimally. Maybe to take a rehydrate sachet or an electrolyte drink just to replenish all the electrolytes that you maybe have lost through your sweat. Also, make sure you are hydrating effectively throughout the race, but then also afterwards. And then make sure you're taking your recovery, whether it's a Steri Stumpy, a Nesquik, or a recovery drink, or just a recovery proper meal, like a proper meal or something that you have after your race. If you have any questions, let us know, and good luck and enjoy.